It was the spring of 1985 in Warwick, Rhode Island, a quiet coastal town where everybody seemed to know each other's name. Kelly Ann Yates was just 10 months old, a curly-haired baby with wide brown eyes, the kind that made strangers smile in grocery stores. She had no way of understanding the storm gathering around her. Her parents, Kimberly and Raymond Yates, were in the middle of a bitter custody battle. The court had awarded temporary custody to Kimberly after allegations surfaced that Raymond had violent tendencies. But when Raymond was granted a supervised visit that May, everything changed. Raymond never returned Kelly. He vanished with his infant daughter, and from that moment forward, it was as if the earth had swallowed them whole. Kimberly's frantic calls to authorities were met with standard procedure. An Amber Alert wasn't issued. Those didn't exist yet. Police told her to be patient. Maybe just needed time. But as days turned into weeks and weeks into months, it became clear that something was deeply wrong. Kimberly plastered Kelly's photo across Rhode Island and beyond. Milk cartons, newspapers, grocery store bulletin boards. Her desperate plea echoed everywhere. Please help me find my daughter. Despite her efforts, Kelly remained missing. The trail went cold. The police had leads, but none panned out. Raymond had seemingly prepared for this. He had withdrawn large sums of money, possibly obtained fake documents, and completely severed ties with anyone who might track him down. He was gone. Kimberly's life unraveled. Friends stopped calling. Reporters moved on. Her days became a blur of grief, fury, and helplessness. A part of her hoped that maybe, just maybe, Raymond was a better father than husband, that Kelly was safe, even if hidden, but she never stopped looking. Fast forward 3 decades to 2016. In a quiet suburb outside Houston, Texas, a young woman named Elena Johnson was applying for her first U.S. passport. She had recently gotten married and planned a honeymoon abroad. She handed over her birth certificate, social security card, and other identification. But something strange happened. Her birth certificate didn't match federal records. The state couldn't verify it. Then came the real bombshell. Her social security number belonged to a deceased woman from Arkansas. At first, Elena thought it was a clerical error. Maybe she'd been the victim of identity theft. She contacted the Social Security Administration. Then Homeland Security got involved. Suddenly, it wasn't just a paperwork issue. It was a federal investigation. Agents began asking questions she didn't understand. Who was her father? Where was she born? Had she ever seen her original birth certificate? Elena was shocked. Her father, Raymond Johnson, had always been tight-lipped about their past, claiming her mother died when she was a baby and that they'd move around a lot to escape bad memories. But now, the story was unraveling. When investigators ran facial recognition on childhood photos Elena had stored online, the results were astonishing. Her face closely resembled a composite age progression image generated by the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. The child's name? Kelly Ann Yates. Suddenly, everything she thought she knew about herself came crashing down. If you're finding the story shocking so far, consider subscribing to the channel. We cover true crime cases like this weekly. Some real, some reconstructed, always with deep detail and care. Hit that bell icon so you don't miss the rest of Kelly's story. Authorities moved quickly. DNA was collected from Elena and cross-checked against Kimberly Yates, who had never changed her phone number just in case. The results were conclusive. Elena Johnson was, in fact, Kelly Ann Yates, the baby abducted over 30 years ago. Kimberly was notified immediately. She collapsed upon hearing the news. A part of her had always hoped Kelly was alive, but the reality of it hit harder than she could have imagined. She was both overjoyed and terrified. Who was this grown woman? Would she want a relationship? Could they rebuild what had been stolen? The reunion was cautious at first. Kelly, still adjusting to the idea that she was never really Elena, was overwhelmed. The man she called her father her entire life had lied to her. Every birthday, every story, every bedtime comfort was now laced with deceit. But as investigators pieced together the full story, it became clear that Raymond had lived under several aliases, never staying in one place too long. He had homeschooled Kelly, limited her outside interaction, and fed her carefully curated lies about their past. Raymond was arrested shortly after the DNA confirmation. He was found living under the name Richard Johnson, working as a freelance carpenter. He didn't resist. In fact, when officers arrived, he said quietly, "I was wondering when you'd come." He was charged with federal kidnapping, identity theft, and passport fraud. But his defense team had a different narrative. They claimed he saved Kelly from an abusive home, that Kimberly was unstable, and that he only wanted to protect his daughter. No one could corroborate that story. The trial of Raymond Yates gripped national media for weeks. On one side stood Kimberly, aged but fierce, demanding justice for a stolen lifetime. On the other, Kelly, caught between a man who raised her and the mother she never knew. In court, Kelly testified. Her voice was steady, but her words trembled with years of confusion and betrayal. "I love my father," she said, "but he lied to me every day. He made me think the world was dangerous and that he was the only one I could trust." Psychologists brought in by the prosecution explained how parental abductors often indoctrinate their children, creating isolated bubbles of fear, loyalty, and dependence. Kelly's entire identity had been shaped under false pretenses. Raymond's defense leaned heavily on emotional appeals. They painted him as a misunderstood father doing what he thought was best. But the jury saw it differently. Raymond Yates was convicted on all counts and sentenced to 20 years in federal prison without parole. Outside the courthouse, Kimberly and Kelly embraced for the first time as mother and daughter. It wasn't perfect. There were no fireworks or healing hugs. Just two people starting from scratch, trying to understand the 30 years that never were. Rebuilding was not easy. Kelly, no longer Elena, had to legally reclaim her name, her identity, and her past. She underwent therapy to process the trauma, grief, and betrayal. She kept her husband, but struggled to trust new relationships. Her worldview had shifted forever. She wrote in a journal daily, tracking her emotions. Some entries were filled with rage, others numb acceptance. But as the months passed, she found moments of peace. Kimberly, too, had to adjust. Her daughter had grown up without her, and no amount of love could undo that reality. But they spent time together, cooking, walking, even watching old home videos Kimberly had saved on VHS, hoping one day Kelly would see them. Kelly has since started speaking out about her experience. She works with advocacy groups to educate the public about the signs of parental abduction and the long-term impact on victims. Her story has become a beacon, not of tragedy, but of resilience. And while she may never recover the years lost, Kelly and Yates is no longer missing. She is no longer living a lie. She is home. If this story moved you, please subscribe and share it. There are still thousands of missing children out there, and every share helps keep their stories alive. Thank you for watching.